Welcome everyone to our webinar on using a value-based sales approach to close more deals. And as we are waiting for our participants to join, I'd love for everybody in the chat box, let us know your name and where you are joining us from. We have had an incredible response to this topic, and we are so excited to share with you. We've had a global response to this topic, so really excited to hear from you all. Where are you joining us from? And what's your name? And hopefully throughout our session today, you will continue to engage with us in the chat. Let us know your thoughts, your questions. Oh, wow, look at this. This is amazing. Lots of Texas in the house, Canada, Maryland. Yes. Outstanding. All right. So again, I want to say welcome. A couple of housekeeping items, and then I'm going to introduce my co-host. And our Texas audience is going to really appreciate this. So housekeeping, this webinar will be recorded and it will be sent out to everyone that registered. Please keep that chat going. And if you have questions, please enter it in the Q&A option on your screen, and we will try to get to those as we go, and definitely we will be reserving some time at the end for Q&A. Now, without further ado, I want to introduce my co-host, live from Texas, the wonderful Corey McKizzy. She is a director of sales effectiveness for the Brooks Group. She brings more than 20 years of experience in sales performance improvement and coaching across a wide range of industries. If you are a Brooks Group client, chances are you have engaged with Corey throughout your engagement with the Brooks Group. Throughout her career, she has held a range of sales management, and consulting positions, and including the position of Chief Sales Officer. Corey coaches elite basketball teams and serves as a women's basketball representative on the letter winners board at her alma mater, the University of North Texas. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I am excited to be here, and I'm seeing in chat, as you mentioned, lots of Southerners, Midwesterns, but Texas folks. I see Elsie, I see you from San Antonio. Kurt, see you in Houston, Texas. So exciting to see people in my home area. And I also want to say, hey, you guys, it's like we got a cold front. At least it's finally under 100 degrees, at least for 10 seconds. So yes.
Awesome. Excellent. And I want to also shout out to our international folks. I see some attendees from Israel, from Egypt, and some right there here in North Carolina, where the Brooks Group is headquartered. All right, let's get started. This is a hot topic. It's a popular topic. I can't wait to hear what Corey has to say and to share some insight with you. So what are we going to cover today? We are going to talk about selling on value, not on price. We're going to talk about aligning the value of what you sell to the customer's needs and wants. We're going to talk about clearly communicating value throughout the sales process, building trust to foster long-term relationships, and using a consultative sales approach to position sellers as trusted advisors. All right, so let's dig in. All right, Corey, the existential question. Why are we here today?
Yes. So one of the things that I would like you to do in chat is I want you to think about how selling has changed for you. For those of you that have been in sales for 20, 15, 10 years, even if it's 1 year, even if it's brand new, either before or post the pandemic, what are some things that you've noticed that has changed? And while you're thinking about it, why are we here? The market has changed so significantly, where our customers are more educated than ever, and they're more informed. And the difference is, but are they informed in the right areas? They're coming to us further along in the sales process. They're almost maybe 60%, 70% of the way there. And our job is to make sure that we're putting the right information at their hands so they can decipher through all the different things and get through the noise to what's important. So I'm looking at some of the notes here. Yeah, I love it. Remote sales. So less face-to-face. Communication styles. Well, heck, Kyle, communication styles are changing, but not only are they changing, but also the patience, the pace of communication is also changing as we're more remote and we demand things even faster, more expediently. Lots
Yes,
of good stuff here.
yeah, I definitely customer expectations, selectivity of clients. You know, it's tough out there. It's tough out there. So that makes selling value even more important. So let's talk about guiding your customer through the buying process, right? And so a statistic, 77% of B2B buyers state that their latest purchase was difficult. And customers who perceive information from vendors to be helpful in advancing across their buying jobs were 2.8 times more likely to experience a high degree of purchase ease and 3 times more likely to buy a bigger deal with less regret. So yes, buying is definitely harder. It's certainly a challenge. And it seems like, Corey, to the extent that sellers and sales teams can help guide the customer through the process, the more successful they'll be.
Yes, 100%, Michelle. It's all about making the journey easy, and being able to align it to the person to be more human in the approach. You know, we work in a profession that we are very proud to be in, and takes care of all of our livelihoods and all of our needs. But to the consumer, oftentimes it's the least favorable thing that they can do. So when we think about making that journey more customer centric, I love that word, more customer centric. When we think about them, what's in it for them, not for us, we come across as more human. And that relationship allows us to be able to articulate value and make sure that we're matching the needs. Love that.
Yeah.
Love this quote.
Yes. Yes. Great. And that is a Gartner quote, by the way, or a Gartner stat. All right. So let's talk about how we go about selling with value. Okay. And let's, you know, if we know that we can bring value to the sale, let's talk about how we can go about doing that. And one way is to focus on customer wants and needs. So Corey, can you walk us through this concept?
I can. So the beauty of my background is I've been in sales for over 25 years, and I recently dyed the edges of my hair so I can hide some of that gray. That's some of that gray that we all get when we're trying to put together these massive deals and, of course, make our numbers. So we start off with the least amount of trust. And so if we're in this area where it's survival and quota, and at one point in our career, most of us have been here. At one point, we've been here. And when we think about survival and quota, it's not a good place to be. And it's a place where the customers can almost smell the desperation, right? We're thinking of, I may about to be put on a PIP, performance improvement plan. I'm worried about my quota. I don't have a lot of trust. Kurt, I love that. Commission breath. Yes, that is fantastic. So we don't like to be here. We have very little trust because, again, they can smell that desperation. So the next area that we get into, and I dare say the majority of salespeople that are even doing well are in this area. We say they lie in the pie, right? So they're focused on product, income, and ego. So lie in the pie. So very similar to commission breath, they're thinking about how can I verbal vomit information, and I'm just going to attack you with we can do all the things. I want to tell you all the things without knowing if it's even valuable for you. So then we're thinking about income. So how can I make the most money? If I sell this, then I get to go buy those Louis Vuitton shoes, or I get to go on a trip. Ego is I want to be the top salesperson. I want to flex that muscle. I want to go to President's Club. So again, all of those things are very myopic about us, and the customer can feel that it's not about them and they are not having a good buying experience. The ultimate place that we want to be in this phase 3 here that builds the most trust and also gives them the most value is if we stop thinking about us and we think about the customer, we think about what their needs are and what they want. And so ultimately, if we're making them feel good, We're making them relaxed in the journey. They will tell us the world. Our customers really want to help us. And at risk of sounding like Jerry Maguire, they want to help me help you. They will do that in terms of the opportunity to make sure that we're matching them and listening and servicing their needs. So needs and wants has the most trust and the most value. Yes, I love that, Kurt. Again, the platinum rule: treat others as the way they want to be treated, and they will give you the world. That's where relationships are built.
Yeah, exactly. Those of you who have been through Impact know that this is a core concept that we focus on: customer wants and needs. A couple of points as well for all you sales leaders out there. You know, keep an eye on where your sales team's focus is. Are they focusing on survival and quota? Are they focusing on product income ego? Or are they truly focused on customer wants and needs, right? Are they quick to drop price? That means they're probably further down on that least trust survival quota side of the equation. So there's ways to coach around this as well. If it's the end of the month and you're not hitting your number, as a seller, you're probably more focused on bringing those deals in at any cost. And again, you're at that survival quota versus customer wants and needs. Yep. And as Jay said, great probing questions. It's like Jay's reading our minds here
Yes.
in terms of where we're going with this, right?
I love it. Yes. Yes.
Yes. All right. And so for those of you who may be wondering if customer wants are as important as customer needs, here's a statistic for you. B2B purchasers are almost 50% more likely to buy when they see personal value for them in the form of confidence in their choice or positive career impact. They're also 8 times more likely to pay a premium for that purchase. And this is research from Google, Gartner, and Motista. So, you know, we hear a lot about organizations trying to, or sellers trying to get to the need, right? Uncover the need, uncover the pain point. But really, the emotion, the want behind it is just as important. When you say, Corey?
I can. Yes, yes. The emotion is everything. We pay a premium for things that we want, that provide us with comfort, with give us peace of mind, or we have established some type of value to it that may not even be accurate or may not even be real. Michelle, if you could go to the next screen, I'd love to talk a little bit more about how I can shed some light on that real concept of emotion.
Oh, sorry.
So as we think about our phone, most of us have our phone in our hand that is a either an Apple or some type of Android product. I happened to be at the AT&T store. This was maybe a year or two ago when I got my most recent upgrade, and I was telling the AT&T rep what I do for a living, and I said that you know, I use an example that how many of you, and you can put it in chat, I'd love it. How many of you in chat on this call, on this webinar, have a Apple phone, an iPhone? If you can go ahead and put that in chat. And then I also want to see how many of you have, oh, look at all this Apple, iPhone, Apple. Yes.
Team Apple.
Team Apple, me too. So how many of you then have a Android operating system? So like a Samsung, a Galaxy, something like that. Okay, one of you's got both. Scott's got both. Okay. So if I were to tell you all that by the technical specs, and I mean strictly just talking about the capability and the tech of the Samsung Android operating system phone, that it is far superior to an Apple phone. Yet we see in chat, and I said, and Michelle said, we're all team iPhone, but a Galaxy, the Android operating system, is by far, on the specs of technology, Android is superior. That's right, Scott. It's superior. So then why do we all have an iPhone? It's because it's emotion, right? Apple has put together a fantastic ecosystem that it looks cooler. That's right, Larissa. There are things that are easy between the entire Apple iPhone and the operating system, from your Apple Watches to your FaceTime to everything else, down to even the guy at the AT&T store said that invariably somebody will come in at least once or twice a week and say, my phone isn't working properly because when I get text messages, they're coming up green. Come on. A green bubble or green words have nothing to do with how the phone works, but there's an emotional attachment because of the branding, because of the ecosystem that Apple does. So people are willing to pay a very high premium for a more expensive product that has to update like every couple of years, way to go Apple, to make sure that they're selling on that emotional connection. It's the same with your customer. You can be premium priced, but if you are creating and selling on the emotion, telling the better story, then all of a sudden that dollar amount goes away. And I know we had a question that comes in that says, how can we make pricing obsolete? Pricing is never going to go away, right? Price is never going to go away. It's never going to go as a non-issue. But the more you sell on emotion, the more you build a relationship and understand your customers' needs and wants on the high end, the less price becomes important. Doesn't go away, but it minimizes price.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for that, Corey. Let's talk a little bit then about how do we uncover that in terms of needs versus wants and getting to the why.
Yeah. So needs, of course, we see are above the surface. Those are the things that tell us that we need air, we need shelter, the basic things, the specs, the tech, but we buy on things that we desire. And so that is what our want is, and that connects to the why. So again, the more we're able to tell that story and figure out what the pain point is, the sales teams that I work with, that I get to coach and consult with, I tell them all the time, if you've got siblings, if you've got brothers or sisters, invariably at some point in time, one of you injured yourself. And I'm going to tell you, this is going to sound horrible, but it's true. But when your little brother or little sister hurt themselves, remember when that bruise started to turn a little purple, maybe a little yellow, and how fun it was to press on that bruise. I know I'm awful, but we all did it. We all did it, or at least we all wanted to. That's what we've got to do with our customer, is to make sure that they feel the pain, because people don't solve problems that are paper cut problems. They solve problems that are deep belly gut, deep, serious problems. So we have to make sure that we understand by thoroughly asking the right questions, getting to the root, which is the emotion of their why, and press on it and let them know this is the impact of staying the same. It's going to hurt.
Yeah. I love that, Corey, paper cut problems, right? So, you don't buy for paper cut problems. And I think that raises a really good issue in terms of really developing that skill of follow-up questions.
Yeah.
For those of you that joined our webinar last month with our CEO, Spence Wixom, we talked about 3 deep questioning. And so that is the principle of just asking those follow-up questions to go deeper. And we find a lot of salespeople do stop at the surface level questions, just the questions that you need to be able to get to the product specs or know exactly what it is you need to quote, for your proposal. But what you really need to know is not only what is it that they need for the proposal, but why they want to buy it. All right, talking less and listening more. So this is something we hear a lot, Corey, from sales teams is listening skills. And as you can see here, those top reps tend to talk less, right? They talk 46% of the time versus listening 54% of the time, whereas your bottom reps are talking 72% of the time and listening 28% of the time. So there's a real difference here in effectiveness just on the balance of listening.
Yeah, what's this one is pretty simple for me to talk about, and what I can tell is what we learned when we were younger is we have one mouth and 2 ears. So making sure that we are listening exponentially more than we are talking. the more that we are able to listen, the more we are understanding what our customers' needs and wants are. So that talks about, again, on that stair step where we're lying in the pie. If we're doing more talking, we're the ones that are product dumping and not hearing what's resonating with them. Also, being comfortable with silence. What I'm going to say to this one, particularly when you're in a remote environment and you're sitting on a Zoom call or Teams call or WebEx, whatever it might be, silence is difficult in a virtual world. Time feels like it goes so much faster than it actually does in real life. So I would say, like, breathe one, breathe two, and let it sit, let people think. Rejoice and embrace the discomfort, that golden silence, and then move forward. But yes, talk less, listen more.
Yeah, and Kaylee here even says it's a real skill not to fill the silence. I think that is that's truly a skill that needs to be developed, is that you don't feel like you have to just be talking constantly. And I think this also creates a perception of value for the customer, right? Understanding and uncovering wants and needs, but also showing interest in the customer and what they want, what they need, as opposed to just talking at them. All right, so when we talk about uncovering wants and needs and really that interaction with the customer, that leads to building trust. And so, Corey, I don't know if what you think about this particular stat, but buyers classify only 18% of salespeople as trusted advisors with whom they respect. And this stat is from Harvard Business Review.
Yes. So as a sales professional who has, gleefully chosen sales as my profession, this offends me. This bothers me when I think about the statistic that only 18% of salespeople are trusted advisors. But if you think about it, remember what we said about lying in the pie, product, income, and ego. If you think about your teams, if you think about your colleagues, if you think about yourself, if you've ever been in that time when you were suffering thinking about my quota and survival, we don't come across as somebody that's very open, that we can build a relationship with. So 18%, that's a very low statistic, but I'm going to be gleeful in the fact that that means that there's a lot of room for opportunity. And all it takes to increase that number, to build and get to that trusted advisor status, is to think about the customer, buyer needs and buyer wants. And there's a great way to visually see where you are on that trust tail. And it really is a story here about a giraffe and a turtle. Yeah.
Yes, Corey. Yeah, tell us about this, because what does this have to do with trusted advisors?
Yes, I love it. You guys didn't know that you were going to go back to National Geographic today. We're going to talk about animals and all that good stuff. So if any of you practice yoga, and I would welcome you to put in the chat if you are a yogi and loves doing the downward dog and all the different poses to relax and get in a good headspace. Where do you think that we keep the stress in our bodies? Anybody have any ideas that you want to put in chat? Where do we tend to hold stress in our bodies? Yes, the neck and shoulders. Yes. So this is a physical way of being able to see if our customers in person or even virtually when they have cameras on are responding to us. So I call it the story of the long neck or the short neck. When you are building a relationship where you're talking and you're asking questions and you're being positive and you're being open and engaging in the experience, your customer, your prospect, your client likely gets into this really nice giraffe or swan posture, very, very long necked. However, when we start hammering in on price and we start product dumping and going at them hard, aggressive, they start to shut down, and you can physically see their neck retreat like a turtle and their body language start closing up. And that's when you can visually see you are no longer a trusted advisor. So what we look for is make sure the more that you're open, the more that you're listening more than you talk, asking the right questions, building value, understanding what their needs are, the more they see you as this beautiful giraffe here on the left. So we want to keep that long neck, and we want to avoid the short neck. If you see this, abort, abort, abort. Change your talk track and get them back relaxed.
That is great. That is absolutely great. I love having that that visual reference of kind of being able to read the room, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that that's a huge differentiator too, especially if you're selling a commodity. That ability to read the customer, build trust, you know, be able to differentiate.
Yeah.
All right, Corey. So trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. A quote from the founder and executive chairman of Under Armour. How do we build trust?
Yeah, I love this. I love this quote so much. So trust is being intentional with your actions. So do what you say you're going to do, and make sure that you are living your life, living your sales life in the interest of the customer. If you service the customer, your needs will be taken care of as a byproduct of that. So when we think about trust is built in drops and lost in buckets, when you gotta submit every action, every time, every interaction, you're putting little drops in the bucket. But the minute you do something that cuts or severs that trust, you may have well have kicked the whole bucket over. You've got to start over. And not only do you have to start over, but that trust bucket seems to get bigger. And so the smaller drops in a bigger bucket to get to the same place. It's not like for like. It's one drop for about 100 buckets that you're kicked over, right? So it takes a lot of time to build that trust.
Yes, great point. And again, how your sellers interact with their customer is a huge component of that trust component. So now we've talked about focusing on wants and needs. We've talked about building trust as part of kind of that value-based sales approach. So let's now talk about making that value connection. For those of you who've joined us that are Brooks Group clients, again, you've probably seen this value formula before. But Corey, kind of walk us through, this really is the definition of value.
Yes. So I love this formula, and for the sales leaders on the call, as well as for any individuals that are looking to help understand their own pipeline, we often get to the end of the month, the end of the quarter, end of the year, and we're trying to figure out, am I going to make my number? Am I going to meet my forecast that I've told my my sales leadership? And if we get into situations where we find out that we're not closing the deals that we thought we were, this value formula is the best way to give yourself real, honest look at what we're doing at. So I want to also tell you, don't worry, we're not doing math here, because I could add 2 + 2 and get 15. So this is not a mathematical equation. You're safe. What I want you to think about is that value equals the perceived benefit over the perceived price, or what I really want you to think about is the perceived emotional cost. So think about it like this. Benefits are all the benefits that your customer has told you that they value in your product. Now, I want you to hear me very clearly when I say it's what the customer has told you that they value in your product. There could be 100 things that your company does infinitely well. But if there are 3 things that your company, your customer says they value, that you only have with this customer, with this opportunity, you've only got a value of 3. You've only got 3 perceived benefits, right? So then when you think about perceived price or perceived emotional cost, I want you to think about that as the negative. So perceived price can be, well, they're more expensive than a competitor. Sure. Perceived emotional cost could be, well, I've been working with this other company for 15 years and I'm comfortable with them. I have a long relationship with them. Emotional cost could be, this is going to cost me time, downtime, and so I may lose some revenue while I'm offline for a month getting a new system, a new machine put in place. Or emotional costs. I have John in IT, and John gets so disgruntled whenever he has to learn something new. So he's going to learn something new. So he's going to give me a lot of grief. So what you want to look at is, on top of the line, do we have more positive benefits, more perceived benefits that our customer our prospect has told us that they value more so than negatives, which could be any increase in price or any emotional attachment to time, to downtime, to implementation. And you've got to figure that out. So it's not necessarily a 1-for-1, because you could save them 20% because you've got a better price or you're giving them better value. But if, again, Bob and IT is going to be a problem, that might be a big thing that you got to uncover. And the best way, oh, Kurt, you're beating me to the punch. I love it. Sometimes you just got to ask the question. Yes. So this is why you win your deals in probe. You don't win your deals by cleverly overcoming objections. You win your deals in probes so that you know how to have less obstacles and less hurdles at the end. The better your questions, the better are your chances of building a powerful value formula and closing well. Love this one. Love this so much, Michelle.
Yeah. Oh, I know. This is like the bedrock of impact. And, I find for sales leaders that this is a great coaching exercise with your sellers. If you are talking about a deal, ask them to speak through or talk through the value formula for this particular opportunity. What are those perceived benefits? What are those perceived emotional costs? Because I've seen sellers who maybe don't have a fully kind of fleshed out value formula, and that's going to put them in danger of price objections. I mean, this is a really powerful exercise to really make sure that your value going into a proposal, to make sure you've got that value kind of built up and that you can communicate it clearly. Yeah. All right, the power of personalization. So really talking about kind of, as we're talking about the value formula for each opportunity, really making sure that you have tailored that value formula to the customer. So this is research from Forrester Consulting. So 4 out of 5 B2B buyers value tailored interactions. 60% of customers will stop doing business with sellers who don't tailor their solutions to meet their needs. And only 34% of sellers realize this failure will result in lost business. So you could be losing business without really understanding why. And that is that you did not really come up with that tailored solution for your customer. What are your thoughts on this, Corey?
Yeah, so Michelle, it takes me back sometimes into my personal life, and when you think about dating and relationships or even friendships, we all tend to value uniqueness. None of us want to be considered to be just like everyone else. We may want to fit in, but ultimately we don't want to be like, I don't want to be just like everyone else. Or maybe that's me. I don't know. Maybe I value my uniqueness. Could be. I know I'm a little special, I'm a little extra sometimes. So the power of personalization here is your customer wants to feel like they are a treasure. They are a crown jewel. And so when you hand them something that's very generic, or oh my goodness, the big kiss of death, Michelle, and I've seen reps do this, is they may actually customize it, but actually leave in customization for another customer and show it to a client. Like, oh, that's just so painful when we do that. But if we do not make sure that they feel like they are the prettiest girl in the room, the most valued customer that we're working with, then that value, that attraction is not there. And it's very, very, it's very important, impactful, again, that we keep them in that long neck posture, so important. So in order for them to continue down the relationship with us, they want to see that we have understood them. And that's really the reason for the personalization is, do you truly understand me? Are you someone that I can value as a trusted advisor because you're going to go through the journey with me and get me, and not trying to force me on things that I do not want? I also want to call out the last bullet here about only 34% of sellers realize this failure. Yeah. So salespeople, sometimes we got to, clean the eyes, rub the eyes, clean out the ears, make sure that we're listening well, because we have to recognize when they're not feeling what we're feeling. So the signs, the body language, the words, using customer words to understand between what's not being said, reading between the lines. If you fail to realize that you did not make them feel special, that's when the deal is lost.
Great, great point. Corey, what about, so some of our audience may be in a more commoditized environment, or may have low cost competition. How does something like that, like would this type of tactic or strategy really help to differentiate them against, say, a lower priced competitor?
That was the magic word that you just said there, Michelle, is differentiated. So when you think about even a product that maybe has low margin, and so price is super important, your value is you. Look in the mirror. It is about your timeliness. It's about your ability to do great fulfillment. It's about customer service. It's about the way that you communicate with them. It's about how you understand their business and help them see things that maybe even outside of your purview, but you're doing service plus one. That is how you're able to give personalization in a way where maybe a widget is a widget plus one. You differentiate yourself in terms of service and offering. Yes. Love that,
Yeah.
Michelle.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I see many salespeople, sales teams who do not see themselves as the differentiator, and how they interact and how they show up really can make the difference, again, particularly in a commoditized environment. And we're going to talk about aligning to wants and needs, but I also want to just put a plug out there. Please add your questions to the Q&A if you have questions for us. Keep that chat going. So, Corey, aligning our value proposition or a proposal to wants and needs. Let's talk about best practices for that.
Okay. So, very simple question is, when you think about your work, whatever industry that you may be, who is the expert in what you are offering? And if all of you are not raising your hands and saying you're the expert, well, then that's one place that we can fix. Because we already know you should all be pointing at yourself and saying, I'm the expert. Yes, I love that, Chanel. Yes. So you are the expert in your field. Yes. So because of that, what we sometimes do, and again, most of you can relate to this. If you've ever had to give your telephone number to someone, we usually by rote say it super fast, right? Because we know our number and we just kind of verbal, 555, right? We just rattle it off real fast. It's the same thing when we're doing a presentation. We understand our business so much that we often overcomplicate what it is, or say things that our customers don't understand. So we have to keep it simple, and we've got to align their needs to their wants. Here's what I don't want you to do as a best practice. Don't go to your customer and as a recommendation say, you asked me to solve this problem. I'm going to solve it by A, B, C, and D. Okay. You're probably thinking, Corey, that sounded simple. I'm going to solve it by A, B, C, and D. Why are you telling me not to do that? Because you understand what A, B, C, D are, but you don't understand, or the customer may not understand how that's solving their need. So if they told you, I have problem A, then you say, great. Before your problem A, I'm going to solve it with solution A. And here's the benefit. Here's what it's going to do for you. You also said you had problem B. Wonderful. So for problem B, we're going to do this. Here's the value. Here's where you're going to get out of it. You also mentioned there was problem C. Excellent. Over here with problem C, we're going to give you the solution to solve problem C, and here's how we solve it. You need to align your solution to each point that they highlighted was a pain point. Remember that belly gut pain we're trying to solve, and show them specifically how your solution answers all that need. You want to keep it simple so that when you walk away, they have no doubt that there were 0 stones left uncovered. You have to connect the dots for them. Even though we think it's simple, that's because we live in our business world with our product and our service every day. It is up to you to make sure they understand the simplicity of the solution. Do not leave it to them to try and figure it out. Also, do not leave it for them to say, yes, I understand. You need to break it down like you are making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And if you think about it, if any of you went to college, the colleges that I did, part of the studies we had to do in my undergrad as well as my graduate work is explain and write a paper on making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It sounds so simple, but we all forget the basic steps, such as take the jar off the peanut butter. Okay, how do you take the jar? You counterclockwise screw it. Okay, where did you have the spoon and the knife? Well, you've got to walk over to the kitchen, open the drawer, pull out the knife and spoon. So again, the things that we think are so mechanic, making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, our customers do not have that same level of understanding to make that. Keep it simple, connect the dots. As you are telling the story, you also want to make sure you're pushing the bruise. So make sure they understand we're doing this because you're going to get this benefit. This benefit is important because the risk you mentioned of not doing this, here's the impact of that risk. Here's how we mitigate that. And then we want to see the bobblehead. The bobblehead is, yes, I get it. Yes, Corey. Yes, Michelle, I understand. And we're getting the bobblehead up and down. So the more we get the bobblehead, the more they sign and the more we get to commission the revenue and we make the customer happy. The more they stay in the long neck. That's what we want.
Love it. Love it. I mean, the analogy of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I mean, I think just really breaking it down into into those very basic principles. A confused buyer buys nothing. They walk
Correct.
away. If they don't fully understand, they're not going to commit. All right, so kind of let's put it all together. When we talk about a value-based sales approach, tell us, Corey, talk to us about kind of what are these three things and the importance of this overall approach?
Yeah. So value-based sales approach is not about you. It's selling on and asking the right questions to understand their value. The analogy that I like to say here to bring this on home is if you go to a restaurant and you know that you are going there for a 5-star dining experience and you know you want a certain food, if somebody starts to try to force feed you with things that you don't like or things that you're allergic to, you're not having a good experience. So you got to serve people the food that they like. So the food is your product, it is your service. It is you +1 on giving them and uncovering the needs and wants. You win your deal in discovery. You also lose your deal in discovery if you were not thorough and were not asking the right questions. Discovery in the probe, how you probe is how you were able to have a value-based sales approach. This knowledge then allows you to understand the emotion that is driving the customer, and therefore you're keeping them in the long neck. And this is how you are developing trust, right? And then you communicate it to them in a very simple way, because nobody likes to feel underserved and nobody likes to feel stupid. So you want to make sure that your customer feels like they are the smartest person in the land, because they are going to buy a product or service from you that's going to mitigate their risk. It's going to make them look like a hero. And it's very simple for them to understand why they're doing this, what the implementation is going to be, what the value is, and they can walk around like Superman with an S on their chest. That is the job. 3 simple things: uncover their need and wants, develop trust, keep them in a long neck, relay the information with simplicity. That is a value-based sales approach.
Boiling it down into 3 bullet points. I love the simplicity of that, Corey.
Absolutely. Nuggets you can immediately walk away with and use.
That's right. That's right. Okay, we're going to take some questions. So please enter your questions in the Q&A or enter them in chat. We'll talk through some immediate action steps as well. So focusing on those customer wants and needs, Corey, that's what we've really been talking about. I think that's just the bedrock of all of it. using questions to connect to the emotions driving the customer's buying decisions. So kind of digging down in, talk less, listen more. Again, simplicity there. Build trust throughout the sales process. Align your solution to your customer's needs and wants, and articulate your values simply and clearly. So really connecting those dots. Thoughts on that, Corey? Anything else that you would add from those immediate takeaways?
What I'm going to focus here is storytelling is the bedrock of being able to ask great questions and to also evoke an understanding of why that need or want may be there. I mentioned earlier that if there are 100 things that your company does well and your customer only wants 3, then you only have value in 3 things that you can build. But as you're telling a story, you can tell a story about what you've seen. You can use your insight. You can use your awareness of their business, awareness of other competitors that they may have, to share that actually there may be 5 things you should be paying attention to by way of story. So the more that you use that, also, you can help to create your value formula. But remember, if they're not buying it, they're giving you the no, it's a no. We want to get the bobble up and down head. Yes, bobblehead.
I love the storytelling. I mean, I think that sounds like a great webinar topic. So,
Yes, I love
stay tuned. Maybe that's coming in the future. All right, we got some questions coming in. So, Corey, if you're not getting good vibes, like the long neck, what are some key phrases that you could use to kind of turn that scenario around?
Yes. So I love to sell on my energy, behavior, and the relationship that I have. And so if I don't feel like I'm getting a good vibe, I will ask the question. So Sally, this to me feels like a perfect match of what you're looking for. I was expecting you to be over the moon. So tell me what you're thinking right now. What's going through your mind? So ask them the question, because we don't want to assume that just because we're not picking up on a vibe, that they're not giving it to us, right? So what we know is if they buy from us, yes, that's a great thing. If they give us no information, neutral, then that's difficult. If they give us negative information, honestly, neutral information is the more difficult situation to buy in. Negative information, we can figure out more and uncover. So if we're not getting that vibe or getting neutrality, ask the question. Don't sell against yourself just because it's neutral, because neutral does not mean no. Neutral means I don't have enough information. We can't do our jobs without information. Ask the question.
Great. I love that. All right, so next question coming in from Kurt. How do you recover when you've done all of this, right? So you've done these immediate action steps and they still don't see the value or make a buying decision. So how do you recover from that letdown?
Yes. So Kurt, that's a great question. And this is a difficult one. So my first answer is shampoo, rinse, and repeat, right? So you can't go further if you haven't gotten the positive reaction, the positive affirmation, the bobblehead up and down of where we are. However, you can back up. So if you've done that and they still don't see the value, there's likely something you missed in the probe. The answer is almost always there's something that you missed in the probe. So it could be that there is a emotional decision. Remember what we said about that emotional challenge. There's something there that we didn't uncover in terms of a tie to an existing relationship, a tie to an existing product, a challenge, an implementation. There's something emotional that's holding them back, or we didn't uncover enough emotion on how you're building value, how you're helping them solve a problem. Go back to probe. Almost all the time, go back to probe.
Love that. When in doubt, ask a question. Go back to probe. All right. Can you share an example of a highly effective probing question?
Yes. So I'm going to answer you in a way that you may not be expecting. Oftentimes, I think that sales professionals want to sound so savvy and so sophisticated that they believe that an Harvard MBA master's level question that's in 3 parts is going to show look how big my brain is and how sophisticated and I know my business, right? The problem with that is, remember, simplicity is the key. So there's not a magic bullet for a question. There is a questioning technique, however. And what I say is the easiest way to get the most information out of someone is, regardless of your question, whatever they answer you with, follow up with, wow, that's interesting. Tell me more. Then you want to ask them, help me to understand XYZ. That's interesting. How so? Whatever else they say, can you expand on that for me? It's really the follow-up question to dig deeper and to go under the surface. That is what gives you the rich meat. How you go deeper in your questions. So, how so? Tell me more. Help me to understand. Can you expand on that? What impact is that having? Every question must be followed up with something else. Okay? Hope that helps.
Yes, yes. I mean, and that's the perfect example of that 3 deep questioning that we were talking about a little bit earlier. Just kind of that, again, when in doubt, ask that follow-up question. Tell me more.
Yes.
All right, next question. So you brought up storytelling, and it's something that many salespeople struggle with. So do you have any ideas, resources, books, anything that could help teams with that skill?
Yes, yes. So here's what I'm going to tell you, John. I believe that's your question. Michelle already hinted that there are going to be some resources coming. So we've got some webinars for you that we'll be pushing out there very soon as far as some other additional resources. I'll also work with our team and come up with a book list for you, some resources, articles to look at. So we've got you, John. More is on the way.
Yes, check out the Brooks Group's website, because we likely have some blogs and other resources there as well. And so Corey, have you ever identified a pain point that the customer refuses to acknowledge?
Have I ever?
I feel like that's I feel like that's common. That's a common, a common issue.
Yes, yes. Not only that, but there's also been times when we've uncovered problems that they simply weren't, willing to acknowledge or agree with. So yes. So this is one of those times where I know that I've mentioned storytellings multiple times. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it again. This is where there's a power of story, where if you're able to recall an example of a similar client in a similar situation and talk about how they uncovered it, it takes out the pointedness of you having to be direct and saying, this is what you're doing. So basically say, I work with companies that are similar to yours, and one of the things that I see a lot is this, and this, and the impact that tends to have is this and this. Talk to me about how you're dealing with that in your organization. So when you say it that way, you're able to address it without being too assertive and too aggressive in the relationship. Now, I want to be clear. If you guys follow DISC, which I definitely do, I am a very high yellow, surprise, and I'm also a very high red, still not a surprise. So I'm off the charts on both of those. So I can be very direct and very blunt. You must know the relationship you have with the person that you're working with. You also must know what their own style is on whether or not that direct approach can work. Because for some people, you can challenge with insight and say, based on our conversation, this is my observation. This is what I'm seeing was happening. But you still want to get their impact on, do they agree? Right? So there's 2 different avenues. The sales approach, the storytelling approach, is a softer way of delivering that pill with a spoonful of sugar, Mary Poppins, right? Bringing it through in a nice way to challenge them on that idea. If you have the relationship, and if they are someone that really is going to respect that direct, blunt approach from you, call a spade, call it out, and put it out there and work on the solution and tell them why they are missing the boat if they don't address it.
I love that you brought it around to those communication styles, Corey. I mean, because I think that's so fundamental and essential to that, to building trust, to that interaction with the customer. Also could be a good way in terms of really understanding what those possible risks are, those emotional costs for a customer when you're building your value formula. So I thought I'd just mention that as well. I'm going to throw one more question to you. So thoughts or, ideas for placing a number to value. So when we talk about like quantifying the ROI of a purchase, like how do you, any advice for participants out there on that?
So ultimately, we like to think in impact, we talk about stars. So the more stars you uncover, which are those perceived benefits, the things that they're saying yes to, we want to get to a magic number of 5, really a minimum of 3. That's the reason why I said, if there's 3 things that you do well, then that's only 3 things that we talk about. You want to get 5. If you can get more, that's fantastic. If you don't necessarily have 3 things, if there's 2, they've got to be 2 monumental things. And then when you think about what's on the other side of the equation, you need to make sure that those things that are on the negative side do not outweigh the positive. So you can look at it visually in terms of seeing the value formula to understanding that, or you can actually run through this not on paper with your customer, but you can run through the exercise verbally with your client and ask them. So I know that you've acknowledged these 3 things are of value. Is there anything else? Asking them that question. Is there anything else that you can think of that you want to make sure that I know that you need or that you see as a value in working with us? Okay, so I also know that there's a couple of things here that I want to be very transparent that I'm aware of that we need to work on. Okay, so how significant are these things? Is there anything that you feel would prevent you from doing business with us based on these things here that you mentioned are not a strong value, considering we do the other things? So you can ask them these questions again in your discovery in your probe to make sure that you are aligned and that you're not making things up. The value formula doesn't work if you're not honest with you. I know you think your company is great, and guess what? I'm sure it is. It's important that your customer thinks it's great. And that's up to you, all of us as sales professionals, to make sure we are asking the questions to best convey value. We have to be honest with self, make sure those ears are open to make sure we hear the value, not what we assume. Assume is the death of all of us. We only get to deal in reality. We deal in facts.
Oh gosh, I just love that. That's fabulous. And Daniel here agrees, self-awareness. Yes. All right. This will be the last question. So for our sales leaders out there, how can they get their sales teams on board with a value-based approach to really focus on selling value versus, defaulting to discounting?
Yeah. Everyone that knows me is going to laugh at my answer here. The answer is in your analytics. And so the better you are about your CRM or whatever tracking system you're using on your win codes and loss codes, the more that you're able to see where your deals are getting stuck. And if it's coming up and they're coming to you, always asking for a price negotiation, if they're coming to you and asking you last minute, end of the month, end of the quarter for a deal to get someone to move, what this means is they did not connect on value. And so from my seat as a consultant facilitator and also as a sales executive, I always ask the question, why did they come to you in the first place? What is the problem that you are solving, and what is their urgency? If your people cannot answer those 3 questions on, again, the problem that they're solving, why did they come to you, and why now, in terms of the urgency, then they did not ask enough questions. They went like Speedy Gonzalez. They went super fast, like the little mouse. They went super fast and they bypassed probe, and they're now in trouble. So the reason that you want to implement that is because you're now seeing the data, the analytics, and I hate data. I'm not going to lie. I don't like analytics, but analytics tells you the story of where to look and where you need to solve problems in your sales team. This is where they're getting stuck. Okay.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. All right. So as we get ready to wind down here, want to let folks know a couple of follow-up items for you. We have a blog by our Chief Sales Officer, Russ Scherer, on value-based selling, 7 essential tips for sales leaders, as well as a white paper on the role of urgency and patience in consultative selling. So some additional resources will be coming your way. And yes, we will also be recording this webinar and emailing it again to participants. And thank you, Corey, so much for just an engaging, wonderful, informative hour. We really appreciate your expertise. And I can't wait to perhaps do another webinar with you. Perhaps we'll tackle storytelling here sometime in the near future. And
Love it.
Yes, and to everyone joining us, thank you so much. And again, look for those resources headed your way. We appreciate your time.